I have a favorite Steven Spielberg story that I want to share with you. And that has to do with the film Schindler's List. And Steven came back with his film to show me the first cut, as he always does. And I said, Steven, this is truly a great film, and you need a better composer than I am for this film. And he said very sweetly, I know, but they're all dead.
John Williams has been nominated for more than 50 Academy Awards. By the time he composed Schindler's List, he had already been nominated for 30 and won 4. He had already worked with Steven Spielberg on all but one of his more than a dozen feature films, so for him to doubt his own ability at composing another film for Spielberg is no small thing, and really speaks to the power of the film. But he did compose the music, and he did so beautifully, earning his 5th, and somehow still most recent, Academy Award. He also did it relatively sparingly, an intentional choice to match Spielberg's work. On Schindler's List, Spielberg kept everything simple, especially in comparison to his previous work. For context, Jurassic Park was in post-production while he was filming Schindler's List. He forewent storyboards, left the massive camera dollies and other gear behind, and filmed the entire thing in black and white. Naturally, Williams tried to imitate this lean, simplistic technique in his music, but it didn't stop him from composing one of the most beautiful themes of any film, par for the course for a maestro like John Williams, performed by the legendary violinist Itzhak Perlman. As Barry Monish observed, the song somehow manages to both sound like a comforting lullaby and contain an almost unbearable sadness in its melody, conveying the shame and loss of the Holocaust. This was intentional on the part of John Williams too. He wanted to create an original composition reminiscent of a Hebraic lullaby, one that would be sung by a mother bouncing a child on their knee. It wasn't the only part of the film to take this approach.
Today is history, and you are part of it.
Perhaps the most well-known sequence in Schindler's List, certainly by English teachers and film students, is the liquidation of the Krakow ghetto. It's a 15-minute segment that takes place around a third of the way through the movie, and it's based on real events. In 1941, all Jewish residents remaining in the Polish city of Krakow were ordered to relocate to a small ghetto in the district of Podgórze. That's 15,000 people living within the rundown buildings that previously only housed 3,000. 2 years later, in March 1943, the final liquidation of the ghetto took place, led by Armand Goeth. Thousands of people, possibly up to 10,000, were transported to Goeth's Płaszów labor camp, 4,000 were sent to the Auschwitz concentration camp to be executed, and 2,000, possibly many more, were killed on the spot. This event was always going to be featured in Schindler's List. It had to be. Some who knew Oskar Schindler felt it was his witnessing of this atrocity that changed him, prompting him to do more, to make his list, and save more lives. In Steven Zaillian's original draft script, the sequence was limited to 2 pages, but Spielberg insisted it be longer. He felt it should be almost unwatchable to truly represent the horror that occurred. It ultimately took 3 weeks to film, more than a quarter of the total production time, and it's this sequence for which the movie is probably best known and most highly praised, even by its harshest critics. But how do you score a scene like this? How could you possibly write music to accompany such raw and realistic atrocities, the embodiment of terror and helplessness? Well, you don't. True to his word, it seems John Williams was aware of the height of his ability, and instead let the scene speak for itself, accompanied only by the diegetic sounds of yelling and gunfire. But that doesn't mean the sequence is completely without music. Perhaps the best known scene of the entire film is the one in which Oskar Schindler watches a young girl walk through the chaos of the ghetto's liquidation, seemingly unnoticed by and unaware of the disruption around her. Visually, of course, this scene is notable for its use of colour, the red of the young girl's coat a striking contrast against the film's mostly black and white presentation. But another notable element is the audio, a children's choir singing the song Oj from Pripyat. The version of the song featured in the film is actually taken from another film, the 1991 gangster film Billy Bathgate, arranged by its composer, Mark Isham. Whether this was the decision of Spielberg, Williams, or someone else is unclear, but the version included on the Schindler's List soundtrack is a new arrangement sung by the Laron Children's Choir. Oj from Pripyat is a Yiddish song written by Mark Warshawski, and while it's become a bit of a folk song, it was first published around 1901. In the title, Oifen means at or on, while Pripyat refers to a stove, hearth, or fireplace, so its English title is generally given as On the Hearth. Interestingly, while this is the commonly accepted title being taken from the opening lyrics, it's not the original one. Wachowski called it Der Alphabet, essentially meaning the alphabet, reflecting its lyrics. The story of a rabbi teaching young children the alphabet. It's a form of lullaby, a nursery rhyme, often sung in Jewish schools and kindergartens, or by parents to their children, just as Steven Spielberg's grandmother sung it to him. As Mikhail Koven put it, it's a musical code of Jewish continuity, a signifier of tradition or intergenerational learning, and by extension, persistence. In the 1920s, Jewish exiles in the United States recorded and played the song to express their feelings of homesickness for Europe. During the Holocaust in the 1940s, mothers sang it to their children in the camps and ghettos, and poets wrote cynical parodies. In the 1960s, facing oppression in the Soviet Union, Jews distributed handwritten copies of different versions of the song, urging them to stand strong. By the end of the 20th century, it had become one of the most popular Jewish folk songs, and was, to many, emblematic of strength amid oppression. So when Oskar Schindler witnesses a young girl in a red coat walk past swarms of Nazis removing, assaulting, and murdering everyone around her, unnoticed by her oppressors, perhaps there was no other possible music choice than Oifem Pripachik. A children's choir singing a nursery rhyme is not the type of song one might expect from such a scene, but it's for that reason that it's precisely the best option. The horrific, visceral actions juxtaposed with the childlike innocence of both the girl and the music emphasizes the shocking nature of the events and the indiscriminate selection of victims. And the selection of this song in particular implies the innocence of said victims and the loss and destruction of culture and history at the hands of the oppressors. The tonal contrast of a song often sung by protective mothers to their children being played atop visuals of mothers being unable to protect their children is powerful. And as Dr. Catherine Huther writes, the manner in which the music is played, it being non-diegetic, played by the film itself and not by the characters in it, as opposed to the next scene in which a Nazi plays piano, implies that the Jews had no control and that the Nazis and their diegetic accompaniment had all the control. While only about a third of the song is played in the film, the full lyrics can also be considered in the context of the scene. It essentially describes the process of young children aging as they are taught the alphabet, learn the Torah, discover the history of the exile, and gain independence as they grow older, all tasks that the young girl will be unable to fulfill as a result of these atrocities. The final verses feel particularly relevant to the film, acknowledging that children are meant to understand the tears of their history as they grow older, not at such a young age as depicted in the film, and addressing the suffering that Jewish people endured in the past and were forced to endure again during the Holocaust. The lyrics can also be interpreted as being ironic in this context, morbid though it may be. The song is about the safety of the home, but the visuals show households being destroyed. The title refers to being close to a hearth or fireplace, but no such place exists for these victims anymore. The only flames and the only smoke being from the mass graves and furnaces, an added disgrace considering cremation is forbidden in Jewish tradition. The decision to specifically use a children's choir performance of the song only adds to the poignant effectiveness of the sequence. Alongside the visuals, it draws attention and pays tribute to the children who were lost in the Holocaust, all 1.5 million, mostly Jewish. And it expresses Schindler's compassion, triggered by the young girl in the red coat, a symbol of Jewish innocence, taken away far too soon. The next time we see the girl in the red coat, it is as a body being carried to an open pyre. We, like Schindler, identify her by the colour of her coat, red, the blood on the hands of not only the Nazi Party, but of those who aided them and those who refused to do anything to stop them. To Spielberg, the young girl slipped by uninterrupted by scores of Nazis, just as a Holocaust was occurring without interruption by scores of other nations. It was as obvious as a little girl wearing a red coat, walking down the street, and yet nothing was done. Alternatively, as Morris Yakawa suggests, the colour is an overlay, an illusion, a fugitive spectre like that passing moment of childhood. It is not solid or persistent in this world, it is temporary. Colour is the comfort and complacency we experience in our lives, but it is a deception to the reality of life. An illusory overlay belied by the savagery that continues, the genocides and lowercase holocausts that occurred before, during and after the Shoah, those of the indigenous peoples of Australia, Canada and the United States, of the Armenian and Greek people at the end of the Ottoman Empire, of the Romani and Nazi-occupied Europe, those in Cambodia, Guatemala, Bangladesh, East Timor, Rwanda, Bosnia, Darfur, Myanmar, and the ongoing genocide in Gaza. Perhaps the colour of life, an illusion though it may be, is the entire point. Perhaps looking for the light, celebrating the culture, and singing the lullabies amidst darkness and atrocities is the inevitable and boundless human spirit. After all, the film basically says as much.
Whoever saves one life saves the world entire.